Hi everyone, this is Kat of Catalyst Holistic Life Coaching, bringing your life in alignment with you. And welcome to my first of new episodes called Your Weekly Forecast. I had really missed making these videos for my followers and for my clients as well. I started more stuff on Patreon and have gone through a lot of shifts of moving into a new house and starting to expand really. And so I haven't really had that much time to really devote to filming videos again. And I wanted my Patreon to be more focused to personalized messages. Whereas I came up with this idea for weekly forecast to kind of combine really all of my interests and kind of what I work with my students anyway for my yoga classes, and also combining astrology and tarot and oracle, but just to kind of give you an all over weekly forecast of what is going on energetically, a kind of focus for where you can maybe spend time meditating or reflecting, and then what's kind of going on in the cosmos as well, so you can have a better idea of how to work with those energies. So yeah, it's just kind of very simple, basic stuff. With the astrology, I'm not going to get too much into aspects so much as really important planetary body movements, such as planets moving into new signs or retrogrades, things like that. So it'll be a little more specific. And the message will change every week as well. I choose either from oracle cards or tarot. So it's not as big of a reading as I was doing before with all of the cards. It's kind of just a single chosen message and coming out to a full meditation or mindfulness practice to use throughout your week. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, we'll go ahead and start with our oracle message for the week. So, this week, the deck that wanted to be used was the Work Your Light Oracle. And this week we have 4 cards, which really came out to a very kind of specific message. One after the other kind of made a lot of sense to me. So, our first card we have is the Keepers of the Earth. So it says, "You are not alone. Ancient ancestors stand beside you." And so already right away, this started speaking to me about needing grounding and working with root chakra stuff, because I work a lot with chakra theory in my yoga classes, as well as just in regular practice. Chakras are a great thing to work off of. But our ancestors, our family members, where we came from, is what really starts the foundation of who we are. Whether we had good or bad experiences, those can leave imprints on us. It is the I am. It's what kind of creates this sort of basis of whether we kind of live in fear. Did we have a really stable home? So do we feel stable in our own lives? Or was it something that was really unstable, and so it's really difficult for us, like we want to control and manage everything because we're so afraid of losing what stability we do have. But I felt like this was really calling to our old ancestors, because sometimes when we have our close personal relationships, we might think of those hard ones that really caused a lot of strain on us. And when we turn kind of to the ancients that had more simple ways of living and were maybe more connected to the spiritual, we're able to kind of tap back into more of that wisdom than now living in modern society, where we're kind of a little bit more detached from those ideas. And you don't necessarily have to look back to your specific ancestors. Maybe you do have certain ones that you work with, like guardian angels. But you can also look to the animals. Like animals are some of the oldest ancient wisdom. So if you maybe have a spirit animal that you really connect with, that's also something great to work with. But this is also a card that asks you to call in support when you need it. So when we're in that fear basis, it's often because we feel alone or we feel unsupported. We feel like we don't have a ground to stand on. And so asking for that strength to receive guidance or support however you need it. Often with the root chakra energy, this could be, asking for financial help. You don't necessarily have to go out and ask for financial help if that's not something that's your message right now, but being open to those sorts of things coming in, like, someone offering to buy you lunch or someone offering to help you with projects or different things like that. So you can reach out to your ancestors in any way and see what comes forward. So then the second card really popped up what I was already thinking, was the card Get Grounded. So empaths, highly sensitives, connecting with nature. So when we are kind of shifting into more of our sensitive states, when we're in this place of feeling kind of emotionally vulnerable, it's good to go out and spend some time connecting with nature. Nature is also a great way to connect to the ancestors. Trees are some of our oldest ancestors. And just connecting to the earth in general. So doing things like earthing, going out and sitting on the ground, walking bare feet now that it's turning into spring and it's getting warmer outside, the grass is turning green. It may be a little less wet on the ground depending on where you are. But when we're going through this kind of sensitive period, whatever shift we're going through at this time that's being brought forth this week, we have to also honor those times that we need to step back and nurture ourselves. So make sure you are really doing that this week. Because the next card we have is Transformation. So things are changing at a cellular level and deep healing. So we may be going through some really big shifts this week, healing old patterns. But I really liked what this talked about because seeing kind of like the DNA, like helix structure, made me think about what I've heard in epigenetics, where we're learning so much more about how cells and genetics aren't necessarily set in stone from our ancestors, what we've acquired from our parents or our grandparents. We're actually able to cultivate within ourselves, healing our own DNA and rewriting our own genetic structure. If you haven't looked into epigenetics, it's really cool. So take a look at that and see what you think, especially a book by Bruce Lipton called Biology of Belief, where he really talks about how belief and belief patterns, these old ways of being, are what really kind of start to make our biology and make us who we are compared to, just some preconceived notion of we just are who we are and there's no changing that. Cells are affected by outside influence. They are not self-sustaining. They have to be triggered by something outside of themselves. So something outside of us is triggering this transformation. And most of the time, it's not a comfortable process. We can be really feeling ungrounded and super sensitive right now. So honor whatever feelings are coming forward and honor your own healing process as well. That's where the support can also come in, whether it's with friends. And as you start to kind of heal your own genetics as well, one of the coolest things is that you start to heal your ancestral lines as well. You're kind of given the tools and the lessons from maybe hard experience of your ancestors, your parents, maybe even your children, your descendants, to actually be able to cultivate and heal, to bring healing to that family line. Like, those are the gifts that you're given, and it reverberates because you're always connected energetically in that way. And so whatever healing you feel for yourself really starts to travel down that line and heal those old patterns. So you kind of break the chain moving into the next cycle with your children and their children and whatnot. So the last card we have is the Council of Light, which is Divine Orchestration, Helpers in the Subtle Realms. So this is really just another message of like helping yourself to find some relief, because you are really supported, you are really guided in everything that you're doing, whether you believe in some of these ascended masters. They've got Jesus and Mother Mary in these ones, as well as some other ascended masters like Kuan Yin or El Moria, if you've ever studied any of those, or maybe this is a good time to start connecting with those guides, that council of light, or your ancestors. That could be part of that, getting grounded and going inwards to start connecting to that old wisdom. So, but this is all being orchestrated for your highest good. Whatever transformation you feel yourself going through, it's kind of in your plan to be happening right now. So taking it all in as it comes, and if there's something that comes to the surface that you don't quite understand, or maybe it's something that you didn't even know you had kind of buried underneath, these are the kind of energies you can call upon for support and finding that ancient wisdom. So for my students this week, the kind of meditation or mindfulness practice that I invited them into was healing that ancestral line. Whether you have strong family ties with your family, or whether you have ties that are more draining and so you're not really around your family lines. Looking more closely at those and acknowledging what they're trying to teach you about your own healing. Not so much worrying about, if they're straining relationships, not trying to necessarily like fix them, or having to be in contact with toxic people if they are, something that influences your life in a negative way, but actually reflecting on what shadow aspects or things it is triggering in you in order for you to break that cycle and start creating a new, how do I want to say this, new reality, a new way of living as we humans evolve and change things, because we're constantly seeing these things about our kind of old nasty history kind of hitting us in the face in society, and we're just like, oh, we don't really think like that anymore. We are not this closed-minded anymore. So how do we continue to shift and grow in that way? And that all comes from our own inner work. It's not something we can force other people to do. It's not something that we hope to change in them in order to feel healed within ourselves. It's something that we have to look at within ourselves as well. So that is your oracle message for the week. Let's get into the planetary aspects, and I'll do a little catch up on a couple things that are already going on, since this is the first one that we're starting with. But we're currently in Taurus season. So we're in the sign of Taurus with the sun. So when the sun is in Taurus, it's much more of a kind of laid back, earthy energy. Taurus is a fixed sign, so it's not moving as much, or it's a harder to move energy. So Taurus is also really about the pleasurable stuff, like enjoying the flowers or taking more baths, or starting to now maybe do those cleanses, those spring cleanses that you wanted to get started on. But now we're really kind of shining forward in that self-indulgent way, and knowing that we deserve it, and knowing that we are deserving of this well treatment. And I dropped this other card real quick, but we also have had the planet Uranus in Taurus for a while, so here pretty soon in the next couple weeks we will have the sun meeting up with Taurus to come into a conjunction and kind of share that energy. So Uranus and the sun really kind of expanding that energy of maybe changing the ways that we nurture ourselves or look at ourselves personally. That could be shifting our personality, because the sun is our personal energy. So it could bring like really big changes into how you spend more time with money, with things that are like comforting, because Taurus also has to do with kind of those Venusian things like love, and more so about like loving ourselves. So we could start to be maybe feeling the effects of that this week as the sun starts to move closer into that energy. We do have Mercury and Venus currently in Taurus as well, but tomorrow, Tuesday, we do have the planet Mercury moving into its home sign of Gemini. So Gemini is the twins, and it's also the next air element. It's mutable air, so it's more changeable, which if you know anything about Gemini and the twins, it's the two aspects. It's constantly changing. It's going one way and then it's going the next. Usually kind of to when it suits it, but it is a very mentally stimulating time. So when it's at its home sign, Mercury, which is also a very fast-moving planet, we might start to feel more chatty. We might start to open up a little more. We might crave more mental stimulation outside of ourselves, especially when we come into Sunday. We have Venus also moving into Gemini. And so Venus isn't necessarily the most comfortable in Gemini, but it again brings that sense of sociability. Like Gemini really loves to be out and stimulated. So we'll be kind of craving the mental and the emotional stimulation. We won't really care about like the small, like subtle things. We'll really want to like talk and be out there, which is a hard craving to have with everything going on right now. Depending on where you are, it may be hard to be really sociable right now. But if you're feeling that need, like, don't ignore that. Like, you know, especially with Venus, like Venus is like our, you know, our gentle love, our how we really want to have our needs met. So, the tarot representation of Gemini is the Lovers, which I find interesting with Venus moving into Gemini. Even though Gemini is the Lovers card, the Lovers is two different aspects. It's masculine, feminine, it's that duality again. And so the Lovers is a good like love sign. It's a good harmonious sign. It can talk about harmony. This could be a sign of, you know, more like love, more sociable things coming into your life. But the Lovers also has to do with choice and determination. How we make choices for ourselves. So we could be choosing new ways to how we talk about ourselves, choosing new ways of how to express our feelings and really actually be heard. And especially in this Taurus season, we're still in that for the next couple weeks phase of like wanting to nourish ourselves, wanting to love ourselves. But now we're really kind of outwardly expressing that. Now we're really trying to kind of find that harmony in our lives and what kind of supports that energy and what kind of drains it a little bit more. So another planetary aspect that happened last week, we had Mars move into the sign of Cancer. So this is another, I don't know if I want to say challenging aspect for Mars, because Mars is a super fiery planet. And Cancer is like the wateriest of the water. Well, one of the wateriest. They're all pretty watery. But Cancer is the cardinal water sign, so they are this kind of leader energy, which can feel kind of good in Mars, but Cancer is also extremely changeable because Cancer is ruled by the moon, so whenever the moon changes, Cancer also changes. So it's again that changeable energy, kind of like Gemini, but Gemini is much more of a mental kind of change, more quick-witted, where you almost don't understand it, whereas Cancer is really like emotionally changing with the patterns. So we could be feeling through this period with Mars being our planet of drive and also our planet of conflicts, we could be kind of meeting ourselves with challenging conflictions, whether that's outside of ourselves or inside of ourselves. And we may have days go where we really want to get things done, and then other days where we just feel like we just want to turn inward. So it is almost kind of complementing this Gemini mercurial energy that's just like want to do one thing and then the other, but we're not just paying attention to our mind patterns and how they change, we're also paying attention to our emotional needs and what we're doing in that way. But this can be harnessed in a really great way because we are taking that time to actually pay attention to our emotional needs and what makes us feel replenished to move forward and do the things that we need to do for ourselves. And when we need to take those steps back, when we've taken too much on ourselves and we need those periods of rest. So that's just a brief part with Cancer and Mars. And so one other thing that happened last week, but we will be feeling the effects of this through the next 6 months, so really thought to talk about this. So Pluto has been in Capricorn for the last little bit. I don't even remember when exactly it actually moved into Capricorn, but Pluto spends a very long time in signs because it retrogrades every single year. And so what happened last week was Pluto started to go retrograde in Capricorn, and it's retrograding through the last decade of Capricorn. So with the tarot, they each represent a different part of the decan of each sign. So so we have a tarot card for moving through this kind of Pluto reverse Capricorn energy. So with Pluto going retrograde, Pluto has to do with kind of death and rebirth. And so whatever it's passing through in your Capricorn part of your chart, or it's maybe aspecting a lot of Capricorn planets, those parts of your lives are what's kind of getting looked at to either die away or be transformed. Either way, something is experiencing a change and a kind of shift. And so, Pluto is the underworld, so it's really bringing those things to light that are maybe really uncomfortable. But Pluto is also challenging and bringing to light those structures in our lives and even just in society, since this is kind of a generational planet. We are all collectively feeling how our structures, our way of living, our being is potentially not as well set up as we thought it was to be supportive. So especially in that energy, when we think of Capricorn and structures and foundations, even though Capricorn has to kind of do with career and that sort of thing, it also has to do with father energy. And so moving into that retrograde energy, I found it interesting that this week it was really kind of bringing up like ancestry, because Pluto as well as Capricorn both kind of have to do with karma. Capricorn's ruling planet is Saturn, so it's like karma and time, and Pluto just kind of really, really digs it up and brings it to the surface compared to like Saturn. Saturn will definitely challenge you in that way, but I would say Pluto and Saturn are very similar in where they may not be the most gentle in that sense. So the last decade degrees that this Pluto retrograde is moving through in Capricorn represents the Four of Coins. So with it going retrograde, we have the Four of Coins in the reverse. So the Four of Coins normally represents how we kind of protect ourselves and how we replenish ourselves, kind of, whether it's financially or our routines or our physical health. It all does represent what we really hold on to and how we kind of create structure. But with it being in the reverse, this is really starting to kind of bring into question, like, what are we holding on to too tightly? What are we kind of obsessing about or using as a sort of self-protective mechanism? Especially when it comes to this Capricorn energy. What old patterns are you using to kind of like keep yourself safe? Like, what foundations have you built upon yourself that are now kind of breaking down and you're realizing doesn't really have anything to do with who you actually are? It's just kind of this mechanism of keeping safe and keeping the outside world from really changing anything. This can also start to bring to light how you maybe have been depleting your resources compared to overprotecting them. So maybe you're not really building this structure, you're really easily swayed, or you um, don't really protect yourself in the best way, like you don't have the best boundaries. So it kind of just depends on your experience, your own personal life experience. So Pluto can bring that up in both regards, bringing it to the light. And so that's where, this transformation, this transmutation, this death is really happening kind of deep down. So this is really bringing up those patterns to finally be resolved. And this was happening a little bit last year as well. Pluto entered this part of Capricorn back last fall, and now it's going to be revisiting that part. So just think back to what was maybe happening last fall for yourself, and that stuff may be starting to come to the surface again. But remember that gentleness and remember that grounding, because Capricorn does need that foundation, does need that earthing. So do what makes you feel protected, do what makes you feel sustainable, and make sure you have everything supplied to you that you need. You have a good supply of like money or financial support. Your physical health is taken care of, your mental health, like taking care of all of these little pillars of yourself, so that as this stuff starts to come to the surface, you're not going to feel as shaken. You're not going to feel like you don't have a reliable foundation. But also don't hold on too tightly to what needs to be let go of. Let these things that are needed actually come in. So this is also a time of healing those wounds that maybe you have protected your heart. You've protected the most vulnerable parts of yourself. And that could be part of these family ties too, or these ancestor things, whether it's in your knowledge from experience with your parents, or it could even be something in your ancestral line that is not even in your conscious mind, but it's being passed on to you to be healed. So doesn't necessarily mean you have to completely make sense of it. Doesn't mean you have to have all the answers to have it figured out. But as long as you disattach or unattach yourself from this energy, because this is, I see, a sense of detachment, of releasing those kind of material things. As long as you practice non-attachment and let those things kind of flow through you, it's going to leave and not really bother you anymore, and you're not going to have to make sense of it. Okay? All right. I believe that is all I have for you this week. So this video is probably running a little longer than it normally will because I wanted to play a little catch up on some other things that were going on in the cosmic energy. But really excited to be sharing with you all again. If you really liked this video, please like, subscribe, comment and share, and I'll continue to be doing these weekly forecasts as we move forward. If you want to get more deeply into readings, such as pick a card readings, I have weekly ones or monthly ones, as well as moon readings, chart readings. If you want something more personal, as always, I have my services available. You can visit my website or email me with any questions for any specific bookings, as I am now moved into my new studio space. So very exciting, and very, very grateful to be fully growing and fully immersed in what I do now. So blessings to you all, and hope I see you on the other side. If you would also like to subscribe to my newsletter, you can follow the link below. And also feel free, if you really enjoyed this, to tip, donate, or anything. I will share all those links below as well. So thank you again, and we will see you next time. Bye.